Evet, merhabalar, hoş geldiniz. Tahmin ediyorum yorucu bir gün sonuna geldik. Saat 5 oldu. Dijitalleşmeden konuşacağız, yapay zeka konuşacağız ama kitleye bakınca sanki biraz yorulmuş olduklarını hissediyorum. Ama sonrasında yemek var, gayet güzel. Dolayısıyla birlikte olmak sizlerle gayet güzel olacak. Enteresan konular, enteresan konuklarımız var. Önce ben çok kısa kendimi tanıtayım. İsmim Selim Yazıcı, İstanbul Üniversitesi'nde öğretim üyesiyim. Yaklaşık 30 yıldır üniversitedeyim, işletme bölümündeyim. Ama son 20 yılım sektörde dijitalleşme üzerine geçti. Birçoğunuzla sektörde tanıştık farklı işlerle. Özellikle finansal hizmetler alanında dijitalleşme, sonra sigorta alanında dijitalleşme derken geldiğimiz nokta bugün işte fintech alanı, insurtech alanı, hızlı gelişen alanlar ve Türkiye'de yapılan birçok iş var. Bunları sizlerle birlikte görüyoruz. Ben başlamadan hani bugün sahneyi sizin için hazırlamak için ufak böyle bir ne konuşacağız, biraz da dünyada neler oluyor onlardan biraz bahsetmek istiyorum ki konu tam olarak yerine otursun. Bugün bildiğiniz gibi Davos zirvesi devam ediyor. Orada konuşulan konulara bilmiyorum bakma şansınız oldu mu? Ama biliyorsunuz son dönemlerin en önemli konularından bir tanesi riskler ve bu risklerin içerisine her gün yenileri giriyor ama ilk 5 genelde değişmiyor. Bunun içerisinde aslında Covid ile birlikte yaşadığımız ve pandemi sürecinin getirdiği birçok riskler var. Bitti mi? Bilmiyoruz. Daha devamı belki farklı şekillerde geleceğiz. Bunu göreceğiz. Dolayısıyla onun sağlık sistemi üzerinde ve sağlık sigortaları üzerindeki etkilerini hepiniz çok yakından aslında yaşadınız. Özellikle tedarik zinciri üzerinde birçok kriz yaşandı. Onları hep birlikte gördük sizlerle. Makroekonomi üzerinde özellikle sigortacıların çok hassas olduğu bir takım konularda gelişmeler meydana geldi. İşte yüksek enflasyon oranları ve yüksek faiz oranları burada tabii ki önemli konulardan bazıları. İklim değişimi bugün çok konuşulan konulardan bir tanesi. Özellikle sigorta sektörü iklim değişimiyle birlikte neler yapacak? Özellikle katastrofik riskler nereye gidecek? Bunlar konuşulacak. Enerji krizi masada bugün hala devam ediyor. Bunun dışında çok konuşacağımız, bundan sonra bence masada en baş listeye oturacak bir aslında yemekle ilgili veya gıda ile ilgili bir takım sıkıntıların olacağını biliyoruz. Tabii bütün bunların etkileri sigorta sektörünü de çok yakından bildiğiniz gibi ilgilendirmeye başladı. Özellikle teknoloji konuşuyoruz ama ben şöyle bir modelle yola çıkıyorum genellikle. En son kitabımda da vardı o. Modelde teknoloji evet bizim için önemli ama sadece teknoloji konuşmak burada maalesef yeterli olmayacak. Teknolojiyi anlarken toplumu anlamanız lazım. Bir sosyolog gözlüğüyle bakmak lazım. Toplumun içinde bulunduğu ekonomiyi anlamanız lazım. Ve bu ekonomiyi yönlendiren regülasyonu anlamanız lazım ki üzerine güzel bir iş modeli oturtabilirsiniz ve ondan sonrasında da yapacağınız işi isterseniz bir startup olun, isterseniz bir şirket olun, isterseniz devlet olun. Burada o model aslında çok yalın, çok basit bir model ama çok etkili bir model olduğunu kanıtladık. Sigorta tarafına geldiğimizde özellikle burada acaba yeni ürünler, yeni hizmetler, yeni dağıtım süreçleri acaba karşımıza çıktı mı, çıkacak mı? Son 20 yıldır ben bunları biraz konuşup takip edip Türkiye'de neler yapılıyor bunları ortaya çıkartmaya çalıştık. Tabii veriden bahsedeceğiz. O verinin kullanımı aslında genelde bir yakıt olarak buna bakmak lazım. Özellikle daha iyi bir risk yönetimi, daha iyi bir fiyatlama, daha iyi bir hasar süreci ya da daha iyi kar marjlı yakalayabilmek için veriyi tabii ki sonuna kadar ve en iyi şekilde kullanmamız gerekiyor ki burada en önemli konulardan bir tanesi de yapay zekaya kadar geldiğini görmek mümkün. Ama tabii burada yeni ekonominin getirdiği bir takım değişimleri de mutlaka anlamak gerekiyor ki bugün konuşacağız onlardan. Mesela davranışsal finans, bilmiyorum ne kadar yakınsınız ama çok popüler, çok revaçta bir konu. Sigortada etkileri çok yüksek olan konulardan bir tanesi. Paylaşım ekonomisi, bugün paylaşım ekonomisi olmazsa birçok sigorta modellerinin olmadığını görecektik. Ve tabii ki bunların sonucunda bir de inovasyon. O inovasyon süreçlerinin içerisinde nasıl girdi, sigortayı nasıl etkiledi ve bundan sonra nasıl etkileyecek? Bunu görmek açısından aslında yabancı örnekler bizim için güzel olacak. Son olarak da müşteriyi tabii ki anlamak lazım. Müşteriyi anlarken hep ben o sosyolog gözlüğüyle biraz bakın diyorum. Sosyoloji ve sigorta arasında birçok çalışma yapılmış ama yeni kuşaklar, yeni jenerasyonlar sigortaya nasıl bakıyor? Alacaklar mı, almayacaklar mı? Nasıl tüketecekler? Nerede tüketecekler? Bütün bunları biraz daha ortaya koymamız gerekecek. Ve tabii ki sonuçta özellikle şirketlerden bahsediyorsak bir karlılıktan bahsetmemiz lazım. Evet, burada rekabet değişiyor. Sigorta şirketinin rakibi sigorta şirketi midir? Soru işareti. Artık değil, olmayacak da. Insurtech'ler geliyor. Big Tech girdi çoktan. Yani bugün Google'dan bahsediyoruz. Google sigorta sektörüne çok önceden girdi. Bugün hani okuduğunuz belki makaleler size bunu yenisini gösteriyor ama ben ilk kasko ile girdiğini biliyorum. Kasko ile girdiğinde bütün sektörü darmaduman etti. Hatta büyük oyuncular dediler ki sen artık çık, yamyamlık yapıyorsun. Bizim pazar payımızı almaya başladınız. Dolayısıyla bugün Google o sektörden çıkmış değil, arka planda ama birçok oyuncuyla birlikte ön planda bunları gerçekleştirebiliyor. Dolayısıyla yani böyle kısa bir özellikle sahneyi hazırlamak için konuşmam gerekiyordu. Ondan sonra buradaki değerli haziruna dönüp onlarla birlikte bugün konuşacağımız konuları biraz sizlerle birlikte özetleyelim. 1 saat 45 dakikamız var. Yandınız. Sürekli teknoloji konuşacağız, yapay zeka konuşacağız. Umarım hoşunuza gider. İçinde bulunduğunuz bir takım konular belki sizlerin de hoşuna gider. Örnek vermek isterseniz lütfen sizler de kendi örneklerinizi bizlerle paylaşın. Now I have three distinguished speakers on stage, and one is going to be online, I suppose, if he can make the connection. But I would like to start with Timothy. I think he is the youngest in the room, so let me start from him. Timothy is from Ageas Group, and he is the head of data analytics. So we're going to talk the value of data in AI with him. Of course, I have many questions in my mind, but let me start by asking the new data sets and new risk models in insurance. With how do you combine them with the value of data?
That's, I think, the most difficult question you could ask a data scientist nowadays. And I think it all comes down to what is the philosophy of insurance, actually. So if you look at the history of how we ended up today, it started with we want to protect families and citizens of accidents, of big impacts on their capital, on their wealth. So we started to develop these models on past claims, past accidents, who is more risky than who else, are there any patterns, which lead to the science of actuary, which basically looks at what was the past and how can we estimate a fair price to cover the risk. So if you think about the data we're using there, it's some people call it transactional, but I call it more operational. It's about a claim, it's about a premium you pay, it's about slightly bit the market pressure. Is somebody else like trying to undercut my price? Do I give the €5 or an 100 lira discount or not? And then you end up with the price because that's still one of your main communications with your client. It's how much would he pay? It's hopefully your most frequent interaction with your client. If your most frequent interaction is your claims department, then we have a different issue. And then yeah, that's a bit how we ended up where we are today, but you can feel in a digital world this is not enough. We need to explore new opportunities to basically generate new data and not only collect what we have seen in the past, but maybe predict the future, predict new data, predict new ways of thinking about data. And this is a very large scope. So when I say in the past we were looking at operational data, so what's new today? You start to have some real-time insights. There is telematics in the car, which well, we've been talking about telematics, I think, for 10 years right now. And I think 10 years ago, the cost per year for one car was around €200. And I looked it up. That's roughly 3,000 lira for local currency. You can feel if you need to recuperate the cost of 3,000 lira in an insurance premium, you're going to have to drastically lower your claim count, which was infeasible. But every year, this starts to go down a little bit. And we're almost, or not yet, at the verge of enabling telematics as a valuable business case. So it could happen pretty soon. And in the same dimension of telematics, we have Internet of Things in general. Like, do we have sensors in the smart home? Do we have sensors in the workplace? Do we have sensors in healthcare that can more accurately proactively try to avoid the biggest risks and price them correctly. So that's where we are today. But I think that's nothing new as well. It's just not yet in our pricing. But where do we need to look out for? That's really the future. And what's new in the future? It's, extremely big shifts in the way our society will work. We heard it many times today. It's around climate. Can we estimate the impact of climate on our claims? And those are tricky because it's not in your high-frequency claims that you will see this. It's in your one-off, once in a year, once in 5 years claims that can somehow elevate your claims payout ratio by 20 or 30% in 2 or 3 natural disasters. And that's something to be very cautious about. And I don't think AI is the answer here, but AI is the answer to find the actual way to somehow mitigate the drastic effect of this. And to give us at least the tools to influence a little bit where we should invest, where we should get the most return on our ESG scores, on our ESG priorities, on our ESG strategies. But when talking about climate, people usually think mostly about the natural risks, but something that doesn't come up often, but where I see that's still very important, is that the aging population. So there's a demographic shift going on, and that one is different in each country. So in Turkey, I looked at the demographics, they're more like a triangle. You have many more young people than old people. That's good for you guys. It's good for the future, but in Western European countries, we kind of see more of a figure 8 shape. You have a lot of old people, then you have a bit of a generation that had less children, then you again have a big generation, and then there are not enough young people to pay the pensions for the old people anymore. So there is a risk, and combined with this risk is that people are getting wealthier lifestyle, they get a higher quality of life, they're getting like more assets to their name, and we need to proactively predict where we need to go with this. If you insure a house today, the roof of a house that was built in the last 5 years, it's a vastly different cost perspective than the roof of a house that was built 50 years ago. Like, do you repair it? Do you have to replace it entirely? And that's something that I have not seen pop up yet in many claims models, but that might be the key to unlock more competitive technical pricing. Which brings us to how should we handle this? Where do we get this data? I said before, we kind of need to invent it. That's what data science do. We invent new data based on past data. And if I talk to upper management or to actuaries and they say, okay, do you have a pricing model? Yes, of course. How was it built? I built it with invented data. That's not a good discussion. So how do you take away the risk there? How do you build credibility? It's by partnering. It's by talking to the banks to get transaction data. It's by talking to telcos. It's by talking to digital players like Google, Facebook. And you immediately feel like, okay, but they will not share our data. We will not share our data with them. They will not share our data with us. So what's the next level beyond those classical data collection agencies? And that's where you see the Insurtech market pop up. You see mobility providers that start to share data. You see small players that have embedded insurance that are willing to share a bit of their transactional data in return for market share. And I think that's a good opportunity to get these new sources of data. And then you can test your invented data. Does it align or not? With this data you can buy somewhere else. That's probably a good way forward. Something which also often pops up is, what is then the value of this data? Can we put a price on one policy? Can we put a price on one client? Can we put a price on a claim data element? I think the answer is no, because it's highly subjective to what you're about to do with that data. For one company, for example, you could have a strategic goal to insure self-driving vehicles, to insure electric vehicles. That means that you're willing to offer a lower premium to insure those vehicles just to collect the data to analyze their claims ratios, to analyze their claims patterns, like is it low frequency, high damage, high frequency, low damage, which type of damage, is the battery indeed one of the most costly things to look out for. So then you can make a strategic choice, okay, we're going to price under the technical price just to get market share, to collect this data. That's an exact specific number you're putting on this element of data, and that number is different from one company to the next. If you don't intend to become a price cutter on electric vehicles, then naturally that data is useless to, and it's zero. So there is always the contextual elements of the evaluation of data that is very specific, and in any negotiation, I think it's always going to be one-sided, one element in a discussion, in an agreement about pricing that's hidden to the other player, and that makes it very hard to monetize this data, because you don't know what this is actually worth to me, what is actually worth to this other player, what's the fair price. So I don't see, I don't see really the reselling of customer data one of the hot topics. I really think that the tech will enable us and collect these new data sets in a more ethical way than just buying and reselling the data. And I really hope to find some partnerships to make this happen.
So I know that you're working on global data strategy, but I'll keep it on the next session. So please. So Bernd, I hope you can hear us.
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yes, welcome to Istanbul. So even if you're online. Bernd is the Chief Operating Officer of VHF Holdings. So I'm going to talk about the value proposition of AI in insurance with you. So, so let's start by asking, what does AI mean for insurance?
Yeah, thank you. I'm quite shocked. I mean, I look so huge on the screen. I think next time I better come to Istanbul and sit with you down there, and we can have a smaller version of me. No, but thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I think a lot of what Timothy just spoke about is also what is at the beginning, at the end of AI, and that's data. Yeah. So what does data mean, or what does AI mean for insurance? At the end, it means, okay, what can we do with data? We need to be able to, get the right data, process the data, make use of the data, and that's I think really one of the biggest challenges. Of course, we have tons of data, but do we have it in a form where we can actually use it with, AI technology? Well, I can't see in the room now, but I guess a lot of you will say, not really. And that is the biggest issue for us. And that's why for us at VHV, what we use AI for now is mainly for our internal optimization and processing, because that's, I think, where we all have to start. That's what we know best. Yeah? So we know our processes best. And that's also where we get most data. So we can best understand how would data analytics and then the extension, meaning self-learning algorithms, how would they actually help us in progressing? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crazy things out there with self-driving cars and all kinds of biological optimizations and so on. That's, for us, that's still very far away, and to really understand what we can do and get value out of it, we have decided that, first of all, we want to start capturing more and more data in our processes and reuse those data and allow ourselves to then become more efficient. And of course, we're not only doing this for ourselves, which I think was also mentioned before, and we should not forget about that. Yeah, there's if you start from technology, you're maybe shooting at the wrong target. Yeah, because technology is a means to an end, as we all know. Maybe stupid to repeat it, but if we don't create customer value, yeah, people will just not use it, and then it's nice to have AI, but if it doesn't create value for the customer and the customer doesn't understand it, or he doesn't accept it, also a big question, yeah, we're coming to ethical questions and so on, then it's useless, yeah. So we're using AI for our internal processes because that's already showing effects and is proving customer communication. We're using customer communication also, or we're using AI for customer communication as well. And we see that there is, you know, an increased awareness and understanding and also acceptance. So especially, let's say, chatbots and voice bots are more and more accepted by the people, yeah, and it helps us understand customers better. We can you know, create more data from there to understand our customers better, and can also then feed that back into our internal processes. So that's what it is for us now. Just to, you know, to give a first you know, first ideas. Maybe I would also mention what it is not for us, and what we don't see at this point is very complex, and especially rare topics like rare claims, because you know, the training effort is just too high, and they're too complex, and there's too many factors that need to be taken into consideration. So we would not use AI for these circumstances. Good for a start?
Yeah, but I believe you have some global examples from all over the world.
Well, yes, of course we have more than just you know, some examples from operations. Of course, what we do using AI in you know, in modern processing is of course things like churn prediction, and of course also some claims processing. As I said, you know, voice is one thing, but another one is image recognition and image understanding. So and analyzing images, getting the information out from the image to understand a claim and be able to already assess the cost of repair. So those are things that we're doing already now in some pilots, in some areas, not in every insurance area it's possible, but it's getting better and better, and we're learning from that. Again, it's usually the smaller but large-scale cases where we have a lot of cases. Churn prediction, maybe, yeah, something that you probably are all familiar with. You get to know about customers that are coming and going. You get data from their feedback. You do some segmentation, and then you get a better understanding from the very beginning. If a customer falls into a certain segment, what's the likelihood of churn later on? So those are cases that we're doing and we're rolling out. And one thing that's also very important, as usual, is fraud detection. So recognizing from the data anomalies and patterns where there's potential a fraudulent case because you know, the customer acts or communicates in a certain way. So we also use that to classify and learn for future cases, and also to help you know, select the ones that we have to have a deeper look into. And maybe last but not least, very similar to the processing case that I mentioned before, we use our operational data for forecasting. So forecasting of you know, new claims coming in, time lags from claims. Let's say there's a storm today, when will the claims come in? And from these kind of forecasting, we can then also do workforce planning, and better workforce planning, of course, also helps, again, the customer. Yeah? So again, there's the use for the customer, and you know, those are, let's say, 4 examples that I think at this point are very valuable. So we're not, you know, we're not a university, yeah. So we're not doing research. What we want to do is we want to have very specific cases where we see an immediate result for the customer, always with the customer at our attention. And if we can make that work and improve over time, then, you know, that's where we think AI helps us. Where it is just not there yet, and it sounds great, and it could be great in the future, let's say self-driving cars, we're still standing aside, and we're watching the developments. And then, of course, hopefully later on, we can also include them and capitalize on it.
So some of the examples are known and used today by many of the Turkish companies. But what kind of disruptive technologies do you expect to be viable, commercially viable, within the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Well,
tough question.
Let's start. Well, if I knew that, yeah, I would go and invest now. No, but let's maybe take one step back, because what I think is very important, and what I see again from the number of cases that you need if you want to learn and train. You know, let's look at our experience. How old did we get, you know, to get to that point that we have a certain understanding in a lot of areas? So it takes a long time, and to improve or speed that up, what I think is very important is a bigger openness. I think Timothy also mentioned that before, maybe the chance to come up with new alliances and corporations, because I think we are all aware of the difficulty and the challenge to really make AI work, and in a collaborative way, yeah, with shared economy, with open innovation. I think there's a much better chance. Yeah. So if we talk about speech or image recognition, what I mentioned before, I think those are really topics where we're getting to a point where, well, I really think we can use it without the customer even realizing, yeah, that he's talking to a machine, or we can speed up the process and assess claims simply looking at pictures or analyzing pictures. I think we're getting there. That's for us I think a very big and important improvement that we see. But we will only get there if we collaborate more. If we don't collaborate and each insurance company is trying to do it on its own, then it will take us much longer.
Okay, Bernd, we're going to make a second turn, but if you have time, you can stay with us. But let me continue with Jan. So you're the managing director of Hannover Digital Investments and head of Best Practice Lab at Talanx Group. Super fancy. So I think you're the one that we're going to talk about the role of innovation, entrepreneurship, and insurtechs. Those are the ones that I love best. So how do insurance companies benefit from innovations, do you think?
Yeah, that's an easy question. Just copy or hire the talent. No, I will give you some examples what we do at the Talanx or HDI, just to make it more tangible. But I have prepared a little story, you probably know it from your children, like a good night story with pictures and better text. But I hope that it will inspire you for a good morning. And what you see is not approved by the communication department. So I don't have a legal thing here, because I drew myself. Yeah? I hope you like it. It's my personal insights, what I've learned working for Allianz, working for Talanx now, working with the startups. Yeah? It's already here. So I think number one, I think most of us, maybe except Timothy, are kind of like fathers and mothers. And you have these kids down there playing with the stuff, playing with our money, playing with our agents, playing with our distribution channels. And sometimes the reaction is, you know, like, I just ignore it, you know. They will not make it, they're just kids, you know. And I think that the success from the past, you know, what we are used to, is the biggest obstacle for change. So I think we have to become more like the kids and look what they do with this, as how they combine them, if it's a platform or digital, whatsoever. I think this is what's happening. We can learn from them a lot. What I observed also is our structures, you know, like, you know, our ties, structures, suits, all of this is half of the success or half of the failure, yeah? I think that the company is made of structure setup plus people, yeah? And some structures invite people, some structures scare them, yeah? And I think that the way you stand, the way you fall means like if there is a crisis it will kill you, and in some cases, it will make you stronger because you learn. So I think how you are organized is very important, and we are sometimes too rigid, too stiff. This is very important. I learned in Chile from a startup company. They said, you know, we fell in love in problem. We have to find a problem that we fell in love, and we love it forever, and we find a solution for that. Yeah? What we do very often is we say, okay, I have a hammer, and I look for the nails. Yeah? And if you don't find the nails, okay, it looks almost like a nail, let's hit on it. Yeah? And I think the startups, when they find a problem, they can change the solution, the approach, the team, the investors, just to make it fit. Where we need the board member to approve it, maybe the board meeting is in 2 weeks or maybe in 5 months, and we are shy to say it doesn't work, and I think this is quite a big difference, but very substantial one. This one, the E2E or end-to-end or employee-to-employee, I observe a lot of employee-to-employee. So your people, you know, doing things among each other and say, oh, there's a customer who's waiting, or forgot the customer, yeah? And I think the startups, what I learned from them is that they eliminate everything that the customer would not pay for it or don't value. Really everything. Okay, you have the regulator, you have to prepare some reports, but that's it, yeah? So you go and so get rid of everything you don't need for the customer, yeah? So there will be like one page, simple language, one click, you don't ask stupid questions because you know it already. So these kind of things, and that saves money, cost, and it's faster, and people love you because it's simple, yeah? What often happens is also that we put the work to the customer, self-service, they have to answer lots of questions. Instead of doing it with data, like Timothy said, I can prepare lots of things, like Amazon, one click I bought. In our case, you have to answer 20 questions, you have to do the push-ups, go around, jump, and then you buy, yeah? Lots of work, yeah? Customer hates it, yeah? This is very important, speed, of course, and we could be as fast as the startups, but we are afraid of doing something wrong. Yeah? I can very easily put something on the market, but then my boss comes, okay, there are 2 agents complain, and you are fired. Yeah? But I think that this perfect enemy of goods, you know, putting a product to learn, not putting the product and go back because they are selling, but you put the product up for the 100 customers, you learn, you improve it in whatsoever. So this is what they do. And this observing the first reactions of the first buyers or partners is super important, yeah, to learn from them, because it's not perfect, yeah, but you can start earlier rather than, you know, wait for ages and the light will never come up. So in summary, you can read it yourself, but what I found interesting that sometimes you have the KPIs that kind of put you in kind of like a box, yeah? We are 80% automated. What does it mean, 80%, yeah? If you say, okay, Google is 100% automated, we stop working. No, there's no 100%. You just go and go and go, yeah? What is also important, the second last one, cost. I think that there's no cost. It's one of the biggest lies of economists. There's no cost. There's only waste and investment. I came here, you could say, oh, it cost me that much money or whatever, yeah, to fly. But it's an investment because I met few people, so it's an investment. So I think if you have this mindset, I invest or I don't waste, then you don't work on lowering the cost, but you say, okay, how can I invest to get more out of it, yeah? Imagine you would give a startup 3,000 agents of HDI in Turkey. What would they do? They would go to the roof. They would have lots of ideas. It's our assets, yeah? And I think this is very important to not to monopolize the things, to innovate. We are now a company, we don't have a chief digital officer, we don't have chief innovation officer. Why? Because once you are the chief innovation officer, all the other guys say, okay, it's this guy, I don't have to do it, yeah? But I say, no, everybody is chief digital officer, everybody is chief innovation officer. Takes a bit longer, but you have sustainable ownership and change, yeah? It's different to manage because the boss says, okay, I want one guy. But so no, you have to manage everybody, yeah? But it works better, like in the startups in the early stage. Later, they become also a bit like more traditional, yeah? You might know this tower. I think this is this Shanghai, I think, tower. We had a discussion about the data, and our management said, okay, yeah, we have to do something. Show me the results, you know, data management, big data, AI, whatever, yeah? I said, look, this is like this tower, you know? You are thinking about building little things up there, but they will collapse and die. But you need as much time, 27 months, to build a foundation. Nobody sees anything. There's nothing. They are working, building, there's nothing. And then boom, same time, you see the tower, yeah? So you have to have foundation. What is it? This is talent, structure, and culture. The most important one is the culture, if you ask me. And creativity, yeah? You could say, well, I need more money, I need more people, whatsoever. But look, you have, at least in German, Polish, whatsoever, around 26 alphabets and endless stories and books, yeah? You have 12 tones in our what do you call it, system, yeah? But you have, you know, Beatles, Rolling Stones, everything. Endless, yeah? And the same with numbers. Hey, 0 to 9, 10 numbers, yeah? And you can calculate how to get to the moon. So I think the creativity to allow it, to let it in, is the key. The rest is limit. There's a limit, but creativity is basically endless, yeah? And yes, so thank you. But I wanted to. Do I have time for two examples?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Just to make it tangible, I was thinking like what to share with you. I mean, you can ask Emrah, my colleague here from HDI Turkey, for more. But we have, for example, we have one-click insurance in Brazil and also now in Poland, because we are copying from each other. And what does it mean? That means if you buy a car and you have a financing from the bank, Santander in this case, they have all the data already. I don't need to ask them. So once they finish buying the car, there's insurance just for you, because I know everything about you. One-click insurance, yeah? That means, I think, one question or two questions, that's it. Yeah? Before there were 20, yeah? We have, in Poland and other countries, we have robots, the RPA, robotic process automation. We have, I think, 126 robots in Poland alone. If we would stop them, we would need 200 people working day and night, all the time. 200 people. They just work. They just, it's quite simple, yeah? We have image recognition for claims. So if something happened at your home, we have a push app where we take over the camera, take pictures, and we can basically assess it within, I don't know, 10 minutes, and send the money. So after 1 hour, your money is on the account. We also use image recognition for fraud. We use social media for fraud, like in Italy, for example. So we screen all the regional newspapers. And I don't know about Turkey, but in Italy, half of the newspapers is about what bad things happen. The people are like, oh, there was an accident, something burned down, the neighbor did something wrong. This is like this better than Google. They have everything in this newspaper. So we screen them. And when the guy from Palermo said, I had an accident, blah, blah, we know already what happened or maybe not happened. So very simple, and it saves us lots of money. It's kind of creative, but depending on the country, you have lots of sources of data or information you can tap, sometimes even for free. And I could give you more examples later on if you're interested. Just maybe one sentence, how we are organized. The Talangs group is very decentral, so we have Hannover Re, HDI, global industry, and the retail. And we are not centralized, which I like very much. That means we don't compare the countries so we don't compare Turkey to Brazil. We don't say who is number one. Oh, Brazil, Turkey, Mexico, whatever. Because I would do it, they would not share anything. Because I will not give you anything because I want to be number one. We only compare the countries, the companies within the country to the peers, yeah? So HDI should beat, I don't know, the 4 in front of them. Brazil should beat the guys in Brazil. If it happens, they are meeting and giving everything to each other, giving and taking. So they are very simple, timeless principles, how to make people work, share, innovate, whatever. And we are quite successful with that. And these are really basics. My mother would say it to you, you don't have to study. But sometimes you have to study to come back to what your mother said. Yeah? So if you are interested in more examples, we can talk later. Yeah.
Okay,
I hope I was not too long.
No, Tom. Perfect.
You did?
So don't worry, we're going to have a second round, so keep your words. So let me continue with Jean-Christophe. He is the managing director of Boston Consulting Group and senior partner in Paris. Welcome. And we're going to talk about the global future trends in AI with you. I think you have a presentation.
I have.
Already, okay, then.
Thank you.
Let's start with the presentation, then I'll keep the questions later.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks very much for having me today. I will start with a few facts. And first with a question that I was asked by the COO of a global insurance group who asked me, well, Jean-Christophe, I have to prepare a presentation for the board. And the question is, does it make sense to invest in technology and innovation? Can you help me? That's a very good question. So I will start with a good message and a positive message. Yes, it does make sense, and I have a few facts to establish that, if I can. Yes. So this is the outcome of an analysis that we are doing at BCG, asking for many companies the level of investments and the business outcomes they have. And as you can see on these graphs is companies who do invest more in technologies, in data, and in AI have better outcomes. So the green bars are the companies in our surveys investing significantly more than the average. And as you can see, in average, they spend 15% of their budget in tech versus 5 to 10 for the rest of the peer group. 18% of their FTEs in tech, in digital versus 6% for the others. And as you can see, the outcomes are quite interesting. 39 in NPS versus -4, 41 in growth, or +7 in growth versus +3, etc. So I think that's an important thing. Does it make sense to invest? Yes, that's the first message. The second message is, what's the maturity of the insurance industry in terms of using data and AI? Well, we are not the most innovative and advanced industry in terms of using AI compared to some others such as telcos, financial institutions. However, as you can see, there is a very strong catch-up, and these are the figures between 2018 and 2021. As you can see, the industry experienced a significant growth in terms of maturity. And this is a maturity score built on 50 questions over many different domains. And as you see, there are a lot of progresses over the last 3 to 4 years, meaning that players now are really onboarded in investing in data and capturing the outcomes thanks to that. If you ask them what's going to happen in the next 3 years, actually what you can see is they really plan to continue to invest significantly in terms of AI piloted by BUs. Currently 50% of the insurance companies say they are in this phase. In 3 years, just 15, which might be surprising. Actually, it's because they are moving from doing pilots to really industrializing use cases and really moving to scale. So AI implemented at scale, 45% to 35%, and AI-driven organization, i.e. really embedding AI into the ways of working, into the way you operate a company, from 5 to 50%. However, it's difficult to really succeed. Only 10% of the companies who have really started to work with data analytics, advanced analytics, say they found exactly where they were looking for. They have outcomes as expected, and 90% are disappointed by the outcomes. So it's still quite difficult to extract value from data, extract value for analytics. And I think that's an important point. And when you ask me, what's the future of data? I said, well, what's the present of data? How can you really make money with this? How can you really extract value with this? Because we see a lot of experimentations, but actually, can you really make a difference thanks to this? So I would like to just share my views on a few challenges that I hear from insurance companies when I try to understand why it's so difficult. There are a few symptoms that we normally observe, and many of you maybe have experienced this and it will resonate. First one is cutting edge but no scale. We are doing nice models, we are doing things very sophisticated. That's great, but we cannot put them in production. That's one element. The other one, I think, is my favorite. It's about the mammoth and the mosquitoes. We are hunting for mosquitoes and not for elephants. And we are running after many, many small things which do not create really an advantage versus focusing on what really matters. What are the big business problems that you want to solve? I really like one of the things that you said before me, which was you should focus on the questions, not on the solutions. What are the business problems you want to solve? I think that's really important. And in that perspective, very often I see companies trying to solve too many problems at the same time, which are not that important. The third one I think is really important about the foundations. Yes, you need foundations, but it takes time to build foundations. And actually, you can start generating value in parallel. You can start generating value from the very beginning. I think that's really important. I saw so many companies starting to invest first in their data lake, in their technology stacks, in their data governance, working on improving data, and after 2 years, 3 years, not having generated yet any euro of value. You cannot have this type of journeys, and after that you start being disappointed, you start to not being able to sustain the original enthusiasm for these new technologies, and you have really the energy falling down within the company. So being able to build the foundations, enriching the data quality, establishing the right APIs, creating the right architecture, and at the same time delivering business impacts is really, to me, what is really important. I wouldn't comment all these, but I think what I want just to mention is there are many, many reasons not to get to the point. And actually, the value is there. I mean, when we speak with our insurance companies and try to understand where they do invest in terms of deploying AI solutions or advanced analytics solutions, it's really all along the value chain. And these are some outcomes that we normally see when we deploy this type of solutions. In distribution, plus 10 to 20 uplift in sales. In bionic operations, 20 to 40% of reduction of operational costs. In terms of technical excellence, pricing, pruning, renewals, portfolio monitoring, 2 to 3 points of loss ratio, and in claims analytics, 2 to 3 points as well of loss ratio that are normally delivered. So it's really actual value that we can deliver thanks to advanced analytics. I will just illustrate maybe one of them, which is on dynamic portfolio steering. During the COVID crisis, it hurt us in France in January, and the lockdown was decided, I think it was the 11th of March. And beginning of April, we were all locked in-house. And as you know, in commercial lines on the SME business, normally you start renewing in September, October. And the question was, what will be the status of the companies we have in our portfolio in September, October when we're going to renew? Because that will have a dramatic impact economically. And so what are the companies that we should really keep in our portfolio? What are the companies who are likely to die? And I think that was really a question we had when we worked with P&C players. In particular, one of the sectors which was dramatically impacted, as you know, was hotels and restaurants. And one of our clients was massively exposed to that. And so we started to work together in April, connecting a lot of external databases and data platforms in order to collect a lot of data. Of course, all the historical data they had, but in addition, transactions data from credit cards partners, online sites for tourism, such as online booking, etc., in order to really try to understand where is the demand and where the demand is going, etc., etc. Travelers, in which cities are they going? Where are they staying? In which hotel when they travel, etc. When we started to reopen the situation in May and April and June, and so actually, with all this external data we managed to collect, we started to have a much better view of where the hotels, what type of hotels are starting to recover, what are the hotels that are suffering most. And we managed to build an index of vulnerability based on all this external data that we managed to plug with external data platforms. And actually, the challenge was really to embed this information in the underwriting processes and renewal processing in order to have all the underwriters being able to understand when they renew an hotel or a restaurant, what is the likelihood that they have, their client will emerge stronger or weaker after the crisis, you know? So that's one example. As you can imagine, when you have a portfolio of 600 or 700 million euros of exposure on such a sector, having this type of information can make really a difference. And actually, the outcome was probably superior to 10 million euro of impact that we anticipated that we could save thanks to a better process of underwriting. Maybe moving on with some other examples, more on the distribution, part of the value chain. Just coming from various places. The first one is in Asia, with a player who was facing very limited growth and losing market share. Again, advanced analytics, collecting external data, understanding appetence of clients, better knowing the clients and why they buy and where they buy, managed to really uplift the sales by 6%, as you see, generating massive value. In the US, I think that's an interesting one in life, again, in life insurance, dormant clients, clients who are in the portfolio, but we have very limited information, very little focus of the distribution sales force on these clients, and a lot of value locked in these segments of dormant clients. So who are they? Can we wake up these dormant clients? Where it makes sense to really give a call and try to re-engage with these clients versus just living there. So with very targeted type of approaches, thanks to the data we could have about these dormant clients, we managed to have a significant increase. And here, the business case is $200 million of value that we generated. The last one is about churn of pensioners. As you see, 6 billion of assets churning, 6 billion of assets churning a year. So quite significant value. And here again, thanks to much better understanding of who are they, why are they leaving, how we can retain them, etc., we divided by 2 these 6 billion of values running. So, I mean, the message is there can be a lot of value, but it's really about focusing on business issues that really matters and really implementing this. We have our analytics manifesto, which is the 10-20-70 manifesto. What does it mean? The 10% is actually when you try to deal with such a problem, 10% of the effort, 10% of the solution is really in building the model, in getting the data set, building the algos, building the models, And it takes normally 2 months or 3 months to do that. It's not long. It's not that difficult. You need a lot of very clever guys to do that, but it's not so difficult actually to do it. 20% is about technology, getting the data, extracting the data, putting the data in the data lakes, having the right APIs, having the right interfaces with the users, presenting the outcomes the right way to the users. This is about 20% of the solution. 70% of the solution is about change management. It's about really actually implementing the results of the models within a business process. That's 70% of the effort. And this is where actually many companies do fail. They don't do with all the attention this change management. And this is where you fail. So the obsession is really about how can you build an operating model where you are going to have data scientists, tech engineers, and business owners working together in order to really understand what they need to do, how they need to bring the insights of advanced analytics in a business process. The very first model I built was in fraud management, in protection, workers' compensation, you know. And we have on the market we worked, we have very regulated processes, as you can imagine, with medical expertise in order to really be able to see if there is a fraudulent claims and there is someone who is staying at home versus should be back to work. Fraudulent cases. We worked with physicians in order to build this model, you know. And as you can imagine, when we started, they said, well, you know, that's very difficult, and this is really medical expertise that you need in order to really understand the situation, and does it make sense for them to send an expert to make a visit and to control? So that's very difficult matters. And so if you don't work very closely with the physicians in order to really understand the way they make decisions, the way data can improve their decisions, etc., they will reject the algo for sure. They will reject it. So it's really about change, about really understanding where it makes sense, what's the value you can bring to the user, and there you can really stimulate adoption. So I will just conclude with 6 messages, very short messages. First, remember the 10-20-70 manifesto. It's not only about having data scientists, obviously. Be one team. I think the only way to do it, in my view, is really to work in agile ways of working, having all the people around working together in order to really understand very deeply what is the business problem we try to solve, which data is available to bring insights, how the systems are working together in order to really extract, build the model, re-inject it into the good user interface. And again, the problem is on the business. Business owners are people in the business units. We are not engineers with good ideas and trying to sell our approaches. We need to be at the service of the business owners who have problems to solve. Focus on value and not proof of concept. I hate proof of concepts. I really want to build solutions that are useful. I don't want to build tests, and it has to be industrialized. And I have always the obsession of I need to bring an industrialized solution from the very beginning, from day one. What does it take to put it on live at scale? Rapid implementation. Again, when I spoke about my physicians and my fraudulent claims in protection insurance, data was really poor. But still, the first version of the model with the very poor data was already better for the users. And obviously, over time, we started to put a lot of data governance in place in order to really improve the quality of the data, and progressively we continue to improve the efficiency of the model. But already with the very first version of the model that we put in place in 3 or 4 months, we could deliver a lot of value. Build an AI ecosystem. I mentioned my example of the hotels and restaurants. We source the data from multiple sources in order to really have this external perspective. And building this ecosystem of data suppliers, providers, solutions providers, because you do have now many solutions on the market, and you don't need to deliver and build your model on your own. You do have many solutions to integrate that you need to know, and keep best resources and focus on what you want to do in order to really have impact. So that's all on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe. Timothy, as we all agree that data is very important. So, data scientists are the most valuable assets of the company. So, I think we all agree. But I think that there are some challenges as well in terms of gathering that data and in terms of regulation like GDPR. So let's talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, challenges are, there seem to be more challenges than success stories at some points in time, but I think it's actually okay. It's just that there are many challenges, but none of them are too hard to solve. That's the good news. If you look at the challenges, actually, if you ask a data scientist which challenges do you see, he will always say, it's about accurate data, it's about data quality, it's about or IT, it's about choosing the correct piece of software for this. And those are all very valid concerns, and I've been in that, well, I don't want to call it a rabbit hole or a closed room. I've been in that very small way of thinking for, well, a few years at the beginning of my career. But I think the main challenge is it's more on a large scale. It's about how do you change your company to become capable to dealing with data, to dealing with insights, to dealing with AI from an organizational point of view. How do you keep customer expectations on point? And why do I say this is because one of the things that every data scientist tackles with, it's managing the risk of your model. And with risk, I don't mean is it accurate enough or not. I mean is the accuracy something that is tolerated by the business owners, that is compliant with your GDPR rules, that's compliant with your cybersecurity rules. And that's also managing the expectations of your estimated business case. So it could be that you develop a state-of-the-art fraud detection model, for instance, and previously a type of fraud, it barely went unnoticed. You detected maybe 5 a year, but now we have a model that for every 100 cases, you extract 10 fraudulent claims. But the issue is, out of those 10, sorry, can you still? Yeah. So how do you manage a model in an organization that sometimes has an 80% false positive ratio or that misses many others? How do you convince the business owners to use this model in practice? Because overall, this model helps you to find more fraudulent cases than before, but you also still have this 80% false positive rate. So that's a very tricky exercise to explain to a business owner, and that's one of the key challenges we see today, is that typically data scientists, they are not equipped to operate in this business environment, to operate in this high money, high insurance-driven world. They kind of realize, okay, my model, it works like this, but how do I get the business on track? I think that that's one of the key challenges here. Another key challenge is it's in the speed that things are growing. So when we talk about things like, okay, we have low accuracy in our models, maybe you do, well, I know you don't like the idea of a proof of concept, but you do a proof of concept and you do a partnership with an Insurtech, and they come along and okay, you pick among 5, you pick the top 2, and you say, okay, let's build something. And after 6 months and lots of money, you realize, yeah, this is not working out for us. The challenge there is that in the fast-changing world of AI, it could be that 2 years later, this actually is a valuable business case. It could be that you had the idea among the first and your peers, you tested out, didn't work, and one of your competitors tries it the next year with a different Insurtech provider, and suddenly it's a big success. So what changed in that 1 year that went from not feasible to a big success? How do you detect these changes? How often should you reevaluate your past failures? How often should you reevaluate your current partners? That's really the core of business development issues, and that's, I think, among data quality, the biggest issue. It's how do you keep reinventing yourself? How do you keep on track? How do you not miss the boat on something that you deemed a failure in the past that might suddenly become a success story? That's a very tricky question.
Thank you. Bernd, I suppose you're still with us?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so do you believe that insurance companies are slow in innovation?
What? I think we have a special environment in insurance. Yeah, we are highly regulated, as you all know, and I don't think we're slow in innovation. But what I like about this session today is we have to change how we innovate. And what I've heard today, which is very important, is that we don't only, like we do, focus on implementation. Yeah, well, proof of concept, yes or no, but at the end, what's the outcome? Yeah, do we get any immediate success? But we also, as Timothy just said, have to continue with trying again, looking at it from a different angle. I think it was also the topic of creativity, mentioned before. We're very quick to give up on that. Yeah, so we're testing it. It doesn't work. We put it away. It's documented. It was in a board meeting. Okay, so it was rejected. So don't you ever come back with that again? And the technology, the speed of innovate, or the speed of change in technology, actually requires us to look at these things again and again and be open for for these changes. And I think we need these two things. We need on the one hand, we need to get solutions, because otherwise we neither can afford or get the trust to keep innovating. But we also have to keep this spirit of, even if you fail, try again. Which in a regulated environment like in insurance, I have to admit, and I was working for Allianz before, and now with VHV, is a very tough cookie. There's a lot of talk about that, but it's really, really tough to get it into the organization. And to a certain extent, you don't want to get it into everyone's head, because then you give up on the stability and the trust, that you need in insurance. So I think the big challenge is managing both, and usually you do that with a separate lab, like your colleague here in Talanx is doing it, and try to keep it a little separate, but just be careful that you don't lose touch with the business, because then it's also just, it's just a waste of time, and you have to still get results at the end.
Okay. So, John, in your speech, you have outlined the life cycle of a startup. And also, you mentioned that they need to be lean. For me, the foundation, I think, is coming from innovation and creativity. So what do you think for the insurance companies to become more innovative, or more, let's say, creative? Do you think that the labs are the source for this kind of improvements?
Yeah, maybe. Also, I think it's individual. I think, if I may, relate it to the other two questions, because what we learned from startups, 2 startups, in terms of data protection. I cannot do anything because of data protection, yeah? We found a startup in Vienna that they can synthesize the data. So basically they make a copy of our portfolio, which is synthetic, and you can do whatever, yeah? So we do it in Germany. We're quite successful so far, so you can do whatever you want, and this is like basically a copy of the real customer portfolio, yeah? Don't ask me for the details of technology, but it works, yeah? The second question was like, are they fast enough, the insurers, or not, to innovate? We also learned from startup, which I like very much. It's like kind of like, you know, when I was going from the airport to the hotel yesterday, unfortunately it was late, but the guy was not looking at the cockpit to say, okay, am I too slow or too fast, whatever. He was looking at the guys behind, and he was trying to overtake everybody, yeah? And I think our problem is that we basically like look at our internal cockpit, and we say, we are fast, we are faster than yesterday, whatever. I think you would destroy the cockpit, then you can see, okay, I have to overtake as many as possible, yeah? And the startups, they don't have like, okay, I will grow 10%, and lately I grew 5%, whatever, but it's okay. Who are the competitions? I have to be faster than them. And I think we should look at the, you know, at the other cars and overtake them, yeah? So I think you can learn a lot, but I think that lots of these setups, labs, accelerators, you name it, yeah?
Incubators.
They didn't work for me for one main reason, that because it's kind of like you have the old body of insurance, yeah? And then you can say, okay, I have a cool hand, you know? I will touch the cool hand here, you know, you can be much faster, and, yeah, or play piano or something, yeah. But the body has, the medical doctors know that it has to fit somehow, yeah. So you cannot just take the best things from whatever and then build a system that will not do it. So I think that whatever you do, you have to consider that this is a existing old body, and you cannot do anything with this. You have to somehow make the body want this hand, yeah? So if you bring it and say, okay, stupid body, you are so slow, here's the hand, I will be faster, the people say, okay, you know, I will do everything to make it. But if the body say, I want this hand, yeah? So you have to work with people, make them part of the success, you make them involved very early. But if you put them somewhere in San Francisco with, you know, sneakers, and the other guys have to work ties, and they have a notebook from Apple, and I have a notebook from whatever, then the body says, okay, I don't like you, yeah? So I think it's very, very human to make it work, and if it doesn't work, it's also very human. But you can learn a lot, and I think both sides can learn a lot. You just have to orchestrate it in a way that they will like to exchange and to help each other, you know, which is possible, but you have to be, yeah, maybe sometimes bold, sometimes unconventional, and forget all these titles and these things that, you know, on the stage, but behind the stage.
I know that you have many experience on Insurtechs. Let me ask you this. Do you think that agencies could be Insurtechs?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, whenever you have a human being, this human being can do incredible things, yeah? And I think that also from the management, it's important to see the whole person and not this part of, you know, I am an agent, like 30% agent, but I'm also a father, I have a hobby, I can do certain sports, whatsoever. So if you take the whole person and you inspire the person says, oh, I can do cool things, yeah? We have lots of innovations where the agents are involved, shaping it, and because normally they say, okay, I will be the next one because they will digitalize, automate, they want people to buy insurance and not sell, and I'm like kind of like a dinosaur dying. But it's a huge asset, yeah? And you can, if you invite these assets to work on the future, I think you can be very successful, yeah? Not with everybody, but, you know, just invite the 10%, that's enough, you know, and they will change the business model.
Because they have the knowledge, they have the experience, they have the everything,
Absolutely,
the processes,
absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. They have the 30 years or 20 years experience, and the startup guy might be right or not. That's why you have, I don't know, 0 point whatever startups successful. Why? Because lots of stupid mistakes, because they never been adult.
That's a
Pretend
debate.
to be one.
That's a
So if
debate
you-
in Turkey. Yeah,
If
right
you
now.
combine it, that's the trick, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jean-Christophe, let me ask you the same question to you. Do you think that incumbent insurance companies are slow in innovation? Because we saw that for the last 20 years, not so many innovation coming from insurance companies, as in banks.
I see a lot of innovations in insurance, not necessarily in terms of new products, but in terms of operating the new, how to operate, how to manage contracts. I think there are many innovations that can happen there. If you ask me, can we accelerate? Can incumbents accelerate? Yes, I think they can accelerate. And I was listening to you asking a question, what will be the next disruptive technologies in insurance? When I see my clients and the time they need in order to implement at scale, I would say the answer is easy, because these technologies do or exist already, most likely, because it takes usually 3, 4, 5 years to really implement this at scale into IT systems, organization, etc. So the challenge again is not about where are the technologies, etc. It's really focusing on putting that live faster. Just one example, just AI solutions to sort incoming mails or calls in order to really understand what's in and to distribute that to the right services. I mean, this type of models exist for years. They are not very sophisticated to do and to build. For one of my clients, and with a very obvious business case, it took 4 years to really implement and roll out that. And it's difficult sometimes to really understand why it takes so much time. And actually, my observation is very often focus. Focus. So incumbent do innovate, but with a bit more focus and a sense of doing things faster, we can achieve much more impact, I guess.
So one last question for each of you, the same question. I'm very curious to learn your thoughts about blockchain and the effects of blockchain on insurance. So what do you think? Do you think that it is going to change the whole industry, or it will have some smaller effects?
I don't think it will change the whole industry. And I know I'm the youngest, I'm supposed to be the most hyped about this, but I think blockchain tries to solve a problem, a correct problem that they want to solve, which is trying to take away the centralized management of your information flow. And I think that definitely plays an important role in solving certain use cases. I don't think it is a crucial role in every use case. So many blockchain enthusiasts try to change the world by making everything blockchain-based. I think that's actually hurting them more than helping them. They should really, it's like Jean-Christophe just said, focus. There are certain use cases that really, really can benefit from a blockchain-based approach, but it really should not be for everything. That's my opinion on blockchain.
Okay, Jan?
I mean, we use blockchain already quite successfully in a very, very specific cases. And I used to say, like, because our CEO asked me, okay, so blockchain, should we do something or not? It's okay, look, do you know anybody who missed the fax development? So the more people have fax, one day you just buy a fax, yeah? Or you have an email, whatever, yeah? I think some kind of blockchain, I think it will change us dramatically. Because I don't believe that there will be so much centralized control, but will be distributed. That's my opinion. And I think it will be a big change, but I don't know when it will happen. But it makes absolutely sense to me to use blockchain rather than all these other ways to identify things and control whatsoever. If it works, I think it will be a big change.
Okay.
The question is how you do regulate it whatsoever, yeah. But
the regulation is another problem, yeah.
but you need a critical mass of companies, people to have it, like with the facts, to make it to make sense out of it. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Is Bernd with us? If he is still with us, the same. No. Okay. No, he's not. Then Jean-Christophe, your thoughts. Since you're from consultancy, I know that you have many cases about blockchain.
No, well, actually, not much to add. To be honest, it's not an area where I do have a lot of expertise. However, my answer, not surprisingly to you after my talk today, would be I usually prefer to start from the problem, not from the solution. And so, again, where is the value? What's at stake? What should we do that? And then maybe that blockchain is the right technology or not. But I always start from what's the business problem we try to solve, and not I have a solution, now I try to find a problem. I prefer the other way around.
Okay.
So that's more my philosophy. But now, specifically for blockchain, I will not comment in addition to the use cases that were mentioned already.
Okay. Okay, guys. I think we're out of time. I would like to thank you all for coming into Istanbul and share this stage with us. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Evet. Çok teşekkür ederiz değerli panelistlerimize. Tamamladık değil mi? Değerli moderatörüm. Evet. Bitti değil mi? O zaman bütün katılımcılara plaketini takdim etmek üzere Sayın Ahmet Yaşar'ı davet ediyorum efendim. Lütfen buyurun. Türkiye Sigorta Birliği Yönetim Kurulu üyesi. Sağ olun efendim. Ben teşekkür ederim. Bir toplu fotoğraf alalım lütfen. Biraz daha ortaya.